Good morning, I'm Greshano. We're coming to you on the last day of the month. It is Thursday, July 31, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today. Former President Rodrigo Duterte has removed Harry Roque from his ICC defense team. That's according to lead counsel Nicholas Kaufman. Kaufman added that Duterte made it clear Roque should stop interfering and address his own legal matters back here in the Philippines. The congressman caught on video watching Isabong prior to President Bongbong Marcos's SONA is AGA Party List Representative Nicanor Briones. However, he insists there is nothing to be ashamed of because it was not online sabong. A petition for indirect contempt has been filed against several personalities following the outburst over the Supreme Court's decision on the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte. We'll break down the details later in the program. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. First on the agenda, former President Rodrigo Duterte no longer wants former spokesperson Harry Roque involved in his international criminal court case. Now, that's according to Duterte's lead counsel, attorney Nicholas Kaufman. In an interview, Kaufman said Duterte has made it clear that Roque should stop interfering and return to the Philippines to face his own legal issues. He also revealed Roque's attempt to sue the Dutch government, which Kaufman called a crazy scheme that could have compromised Duterte's defense. Kaufman accused Roque of undermining the legal team from the beginning, misleading the public, and pushing legal actions without proper coordination. In response, Roque denied any interference and reiterated his continued support for Duterte's defense.
Hindi naman talaga totoo na ako'y nakihimasok. I adhere to the strictest ethical standards. At alam ko na isa sa pangunahin talagang rule of ethics ay huwag maghihimasok sa kaso ng iba. Pero hindi po ako pwedeng umuwi, hindi ko po papayagan na mawalay kita Tatay Digong dahil yun naman po ang pangako ko. Hanggang sa huli, sasamahan ko po siya. At dahil sinugal ko na po ang lahat, kung talagang ang lalabas dito ay natalo ako sa sugal, so be it.
As the Senate prepares to deliberate on Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment case next week, several legal luminaries are voicing objections, raising questions about fairness, due process, and constitutional integrity. Here is the report.
The Senate is set to tackle the Supreme Court's decision on Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment case on August 6. Senate President Chis Escudero said senators will be voting on what to do with the impeachment. The lower chamber, for its part, vows to file a motion for reconsideration before the Supreme Court. For former Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, the Senate should not take action on the impeachment case for now, as the decision is still not final pending appeal by the House.
If the decision becomes final, of course we have to follow the final ruling of the Supreme Court. It's the final arbiter. Whether it's correct or not, that's the final ruling. It's only executory, but not yet final because the House still has a motion for reconsideration. Normally, you act when it's already final. Because there's a chance, because it's not yet final, there's still a chance it could be reversed or changed.
Personally, though, Carpio isn't in favor of his former colleague's ruling. In particular, he questioned the part that said the articles of impeachment had no plenary vote before they were transmitted to the Senate. Recall that more than 200 or a third of the House of Representatives signed the impeachment complaint submitted to the upper chamber.
So the finding of the Supreme Court in their decision that there was no plenary approval of the fourth complaint is totally wrong because that is not what the records of the House show. There was an actual action, actual vote by the plenary to send the fourth complaint to the Senate. It was even unanimous. Nobody objected.
Carpio also believes the one-year bar rule isn't applicable to the fourth impeachment complaint.
The Supreme Court said that the one-year bar rule started to run when the House adjourned. So when the House adjourned, the fourth complaint was already approved by the plenary and it already reached the Senate. So obviously, the 1-year bar rule cannot apply to the fourth complaint. The fourth complaint was filed on time.
This was seconded by one of the framers of the 1987 Constitution, Attorney Christian Monsod. In particular, he zeroed in on a portion of the Supreme Court ruling stating that the Vice President wasn't given due process in the complaint.
That happens in the hearing in the Senate.
Yes.
So even the basis for the Supreme Court ruling of lack of due process is wrong.
Meanwhile, former Integrated Bar of the Philippines President Domingo Cayosa warned of far-reaching consequences on public accountability and constitutional integrity. He urged the Supreme Court to reconsider or clarify its ruling, suggesting the possibility of oral argument and wider judicial participation.
Maganda nga yung thinking ng iba na why did you not conduct an oral argument or some suggestions it might be good for them to give the MR a chance so that an oral argument so that everybody could hear it, assuming they will allow public oral arguments, and the full court or the other two who were not there can participate.
Senate Finance Committee Chair Senator Win Gatchalian said he will push for greater transparency in the bicameral budget deliberations by live streaming the proceedings and uploading all related documents to the Senate's official website. Gatchalian added that the Bicam should focus on disagreeing provisions between the House and the Senate versions. Technical committees, he said, are needed to reconcile differences in the thousands of pages of the National Expenditure Program. Gatchalian also noted that President Marcos's fourth SONA will help shape the 2026 budget.
I will take it further than just opening it to the public. I will make sure, at least on the Senate side, that the documents pertaining to the budget will be uploaded to the website. What I intend to do is to limit the BICAM to disagreeing provisions. So meaning what the House did not or did propose and what the Senate did or did not propose, those are the only items that we can talk about. We cannot talk about items outside of the disagreeing provisions.
The congressman caught on camera watching an e-sabong game turns out to be AGA Party List Representative Nicanor Briones. He caused a firestorm on social media for watching online cockfighting during Monday's election of House Speaker. Briones said he has nothing to be ashamed of because he never engaged in sabong nor used an e-wallet app. He added that he has forgiven those who took and uploaded his photos. The congressman said he revealed his identity out of respect to Speaker Martin Romualdez in the House, whose image has also taken a hit because of the now viral images.
Totoo, hindi ako nag-sabong. Sa totoo lang, may nag-message sa akin sa Messenger. So, tinignan ko lang naman. Hindi ko naman nakalain na meron palang magkukuha ng aking mga private messages. So, nagulat na lang ako. Pero okay lang yon. Dahil malinis ang konsyensya ko, hindi naman ako nagsasabong. Ako, hindi mo ako makikita sa kahit sa sabungan. At fake news. Online sabong sinasabi. Niwala akong GCash. Niwala akong money transfer na online. Hindi ako marunong dahil old school tayo.
Coming right up, authorities recover a human skull from Taal Lake based on a whistleblower's tip in the missing Sabongeros case. And former OWA Chief Arnel Ignasio faces graft charges filed by the Department of Migrant Workers. All that and more when Morning Matters returns. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Justice Secretary Boying Remulla said authorities have recovered a human skull and several bones from Taal Lake amid the ongoing search for the missing Sabongeros. Remulla said the remains were found in a location identified by whistleblower Julie Patidongan, strengthening the credibility of his testimony. He added that the victims may have been linked not only to e-sabong operations, but also to the drug war or other crimes. The recovered bones have been turned over to the PNP Crime Laboratory for forensic examination. Meanwhile, Fil-Am has lifted its tsunami advisory following the magnitude 8.8 earthquake off the east coast of Kamchatka, Russia. The agency confirmed that no significant sea level disturbances or destructive waves were observed along Philippine coast. It also noted that no further tsunami bulletins will be issued for this event. Fil-Am had warned that coastal areas in parts of Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao could experience waves of less than 1 meter between 1:20 p.m. and 2:40 p.m. on Wednesday. The Migrant Workers Department has filed graft charges against former OWA Chief Arnel Ignasio. Now, this stems from the anomalous 1.4 billion peso land acquisition deal of the Overseas Welfare Administration, or OWA. According to DMW Chief Hans Leo Kakdak, 2 deputy administrators are also involved. Kakdak added that the land sellers who received money from the agency were also slapped with cases. Ignasio has since denied any irregularities in the said deal. Joining us now to discuss the details of this case and the agency's next move is DMW Undersecretary Bernard Olalia. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, Yusek.
Magandang umaga po, ma'am. Magandang umaga po sa mga nakikinig at nanonood po sa programa.
Okay, this is a step further into the Arnel Ignasio case, filing graft charges before the Office of the Ombudsman. What prompted the DMW to move forward with this case? Is there additional evidence uncovered?
Yes, ma'am. This is pursuant to the direction of the national government, especially the order of the President to make accountable public officers involved in anomalies. After the DMW conducted its investigation, we found probable cause for the filing of violation of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act and violations of the provisions of the revised penal code regarding malversation against ex-administrator of OWA, Arnel Ignasio, the 2 other deputy administrators, and the private persons involved in the land deal between OWA covering 1.4 million pesos more or less.
Now, according to your investigation, paano ho ba nangyari ito? Siyempre, para sa sabi po ni OWA Chief Arnel Ignasio, ito po ay halfway house dapat, no? So what was so anomalous about the deal?
Yeah. When this information came to the knowledge of Secretary Hans Kakdak, he ordered an investigation, and we found out that the original ERN, or the Emergency Repatriation Fund of OWA, was converted to capital outlay. Yun po yung pinanggalingan nito, ma'am, no? So, tinignan po niya kung merong board resolution if that conversion went through the authority of the Board of Trustees, because OWA then is being controlled and supervised by the OWA Board of Trustees. Wala pong dumaan sa kanya at wala rin pong dumaan doon sa proposal to construct a halfway house. More so, wala rin pong authority at hindi rin po dumaan sa board yung land deal, yung land purchase covering a property worth more or less 1.4 billion pesos.
Actually, Mr. Ignasio responded to this at sabi po niya, it had been brought up in the Senate and the DBM. Wala po kayong nakikita doon? I mean, meron naman pong pag-aabiso?
There was a letter, but that letter is not enough, ma'am. Ang kailangan po talaga, in accordance with the provisions of the Act creating the OWA, kinakailangan po talaga ng authority, and it has to go through the board. At syempre, it's a collegial action to be approved by the board, no? So yun po yung mga bagay na hindi nasunod. Tulad po ng binanggit ko kanina, number 1, yung conversion. Number 2, yung proposed construction of the halfway house. Number 3, the proposal to purchase the land itself. Number 4, yung pong contract to sell and the deed of sale. Hindi rin po dumaan sa board. Yes po.
Oo. That's a lot, no? Meaning, he has a lot of leeway to act. Medyo matagal-tagal po. I mean, what is the status now of the land? Has it been, has the halfway house been built already?
The transaction has been consummated. The amount of the consideration has been fully paid. And the property is now sitting idly. And what we found out during the investigation also is that the building itself, which was valued at a considerable amount, was demolished. No? Pati yung building po na nakatayo doon ay na-demolished. No? So these are the things that we're looking into. Kaya po minabuti ng DMW at OWA na isampa na lang yung ombudsman case for a proper conduct and inquiry of the matters heading into this issue.
Ibig sabihin, dinemolish lang po yung building, natayuan na po ba ng bago?
Naku, hindi pa po.
Hindi pa.
Kasi dadaan na naman po ulit sa board yun at wala pa pong pondo na inaaprubahan at hindi pa po, wala pa pong proposal. At yun nga po, no, a lot of issues. So this is a property in litigation at pinabuti ng DMW at UWA na status ko muna before we get into more complicated issues.
Is it possible to go after the 1.4 billion still? I mean, even if it has been fully paid, posible po ba yun mahabol pa para maibalik? And what was the official land appraisal?
Yung pong restitution is part of the relief that the ombudsman would finally render, no? Because a person deemed as criminally liable is also civilly liable. No? So pag nagkaroon po ng decision sa ombudsman case, the ombudsman will order the parties to restitute the full amount of the consideration. Ibig sabihin, ibabalik po nila yon. Kasama po doon sa kasong po isinampa natin. No? Ito pong problema natin ngayon is we will find for more probable cause for other cases that could be filed. No? Kasi siyempre may iba pa po tayong titingin ang
Okay, bilang panghuli po, hahabol ko lang, kamusta naman po yung ating alert status for of course, after the earthquake that happened in Russia, which triggered tsunami warnings across the Pacific. How are you monitoring the Filipinos? What's the latest update on that?
Yes, ma'am. Our MWO offices in the concerned areas, like for example, our MWO in Tokyo sa Japan, is monitoring the situation, no? Including our partners in DSA po sa Russia naman, because we do not have a migrant workers office doon. And we are taking enough precautions in order to prevent any casualty. Wala naman pong problema at wala naman pong natatangkot na Pilipino doon po sa nangyaring earthquake at probable tsunami.
At yung mga hostages po ng mga Houthi rebels, yung siyam na Pinoy, kamusta po?
Yes, ma'am. Opo. Alam na natin na nakauwi na sa kanilang pamilya yung 8 na rescue po natin. And then there are still around 9 missing seafarers na ngayon nabalitaan natin at na-confirm na nasa kustodiya ng Houthi sa Yemen. No? Katunayan po nito, they have already got in touch with their respective families. Ilan po sa kanila nakatawag na at nakausap ng kanilang mga mahal sa buhay at ayon po sa kanila, maayos naman po yung kanilang kondisyon. Kaya po tayo naman, ating hanay sa BMW, kinokontak po natin ang DFA at lahat ng national government para tulungan na maiwi na po sila dito sa ating bansa.
What are the Houthi rebels asking for in return to be able to release them to the Philippines?
In fairness to the Houthi rebels, ma'am, no? Katulad po na nangyari doon sa 17 na nauna nang napalaya, wala namang kondisyon hiningi noon at ngayon din, wala rin namang kondisyon. No? So umaasa po tayo that in due time, we will be able to successfully repatriate and bring back home the remaining missing seafarers.
All right, we will keep up to date with that story there. Maraming salamat sa iyo for the updates on the issues surrounding our migrant workers. We have, of course, DMW Undersecretary Bernard Olalia. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Maraming salamat din po, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity.
Those petitioned for contempt by Attorney Ferdinand Topacio. Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back. Keep it here on One News. Good morning, I'm Gretchen Juan here on Morning Matters. We talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. Several personalities are facing a petition for indirect contempt over their tirades against the Supreme Court's ruling on Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment. Here is the report.
Halata kasi na itong Supreme Court is just siding with Sara. Ako nga, dinisbar ako for a much lesser offense. Samantalang si Sara, katakot-takot na pagmumura, katakot-takot na pagbabanta ng pagpatay ang ginawa niya, hindi siya dinidisbar.
After making scathing remarks against the Supreme Court's ruling that halted the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte, Gadon faces a petition for indirect contempt filed by fellow lawyer Ferdinand Topacio. Rather than back down, Gadon hit back with a taunt, challenging Topacio to a one-on-one singing competition for a cause. Gadon dismissed the petition as a publicity stunt.
No one will ever be impeached from now on. Tapos sasabihin nila, kasi daw maraming complaint, allowed lang once a year. Marami yung nag-file, pero iisa lang yung dinala sa plenary. And that's what counts most.
Topacio, for his part, took Gadon's challenge in stride, but insisted the issue is no laughing matter.
Kaibigan ko yang si Atty. Gadon. In fact, lagi kami nagko-concert niyan. But kasamang Larry, I'm sorry, but this is no laughing matter. I am an officer of the court, and as such, isang katungkulan ko na ipagtanggol ang karangalan at reputasyon ng ating kataas-taasang hukuman. So I'm sorry. I hope we can still be friends. Sa akin, this is nothing personal. This is part of my duties as an officer of the court.
Aside from Gadon, Akbayan Representative Percy Sindanya and analyst Richard Heydarian are also facing contempt petition over their comments on the Supreme Court's decision on Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment ruling.
Our next guest is one of the personalities facing a Supreme Court petition for indirect contempt. And joining us now is political analyst and columnist Richard Heydarian. Let me correct that, no? Hindi si Ferdinand Topacio ang nagkaso sa'yo, kundi si Attorney Mark Tolentino and Rolex Suplico. You and Congressman Percy Sindanya were tagged for deliberately and maliciously framing the justices as particularly, justices as beholden to President Rodrigo Duterte. What would you have to say about that? Nagulat ka ba dito?
Well,
good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I mean, first of all, kailangan kong gumising na maaga. I think we have to prepare the 30,000 just in case, God forbid na. But, obviously this is just a frivolous case because I think the only material they were referring to, because I reached out to different ex-justices, there Ascuna, Carpio. I actually even reached out to the Supreme Court and tried to get an interview with them to be fair about this. I had, I think, a tweet or something like that about just the fact that, 13 out of 15 justices by 2022 were appointed by the former president. But I made it absolutely clear, including in my Philippine Daily Inquirer column this week, that just because you're appointed by someone, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll vote along certain lines. So I was very clear about that. And therefore, in my opinion, what is malicious here, what is being twisted here is my tweet and my interventions on social media and a complete, lack of attention to all of the caveats and context and everything I put there. Not to mention, I've consistently on Twitter and different platforms said, there's no point in attacking the justices, including, progressive justices like Justice Leon. And so all of this are on the record. So actually, I was surprised that they put me there. Kaya suspect ako, baka nilagay lang ako dahil maraming naasar sa mga tore, mga taunting ko. So that's why I find it very frivolous. But I have high hopes and high confidence in our highest court and our good justices not to bother with and to dispense with these kinds of frivolous petitions. I mean, just to be nice about it, I mean, when I was saying, who are these people even filing this? I mean, it's a gallery of rogues.
Tatanungin ko nga sana.
It's a gallery of rogues. Yung isa, family name pa lang. Parang yung isa naman, parang, I mean, you just Google, I don't know kung may Wikipedia page yung mga tao na, just Google their background. And then you also had people from this, banned party list there. I think that speaks for itself about the credibility of this whole process and all of that.
But you haven't been particularly safe with your commentaries on social media, right? Ang dami mo ring mga statements there.
I have statements on West Philippine Sea. I have statements on other things. But as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, while I've expressed my dissatisfaction with its implications, and I've interviewed people who have disagreed with its merit, these are legal luminaries. At the end of the day, I think I was very clear that this is not about attacking the integrity of the institution, because at the end of the day, that undermines faith in our own democracy. And I also find it the brazen hypocrisy here of certain people trying to supposedly stand for the court when in fact they also stand with the president, a former president who was directly attacking the Supreme Court back in the day, including the former Chief Justice. I mean, remember the whole co-warrant to drama and all of that. So I see a lot of brazen hypocrisy there. But, one thing I want to emphasize here, as columnists, as journalists, as, public educators, the principle of verbi legis, right? The idea that, it is not the monopoly of constitutional law experts to discuss matters of national interest, matters of Supreme Court ruling. I think all of us, as long as you can understand basic English...
And it is public information.
It is public information.
Sino yung mga appointees ni Duterte.
Yes, exactly. And mentioning of facts, last time I checked, is not necessarily crime. Especially when you put a caveat, especially when below that, I mean, you can check the tweet I shared with you.
Babalikan ko nga eh.
Yeah, it's very clear in the tweet, right?
Sinabi ni Richard Heydarian, fact, Duterte had appointed as many as 13 out of 15 Supreme Court justices by 2022. This reached 200,000 views. And then after that, on the same day, you said nevertheless...
No, it's under the same tweet, actually. Nevertheless, the decision was unanimous and would be unfair to automatically cast judgment just because of appointment patterns. And then I also said, check the Supreme Court site here, citing the tweet. And then this is also when I reached out to the Supreme Court and asked them if I could interview them, but it looks like they're still not open to open interview at this point in time. So that's why I was really surprised with this kind of thing. So is it legal harassment? Is it certain people trying to silence me? I remember back in the day, some of these good friends of ours are my fans, right? I remember there was a picture I had with a puppy, right? Like I was parked car and then the puppy was there, and then they make it look like a reckless driving. It was just so ridiculous. So this is unfortunately not the first time I'm facing this kind of, let's just say, funny situation. But it is what it is. We're prepared to respond accordingly, but God willing, the Supreme Court, our highest court, for whom we have a lot of respect, I'm sure they won't, we hope that they won't bother with this kind of frivolous petitions. And sana naman ang mga abogado also, when they file petitions and all, they don't do anything frivolous. They responsibly use this because the concern of some people is the weaponization of petitions to create a chilling effect.
That's
and some
correct.
of us, we have the privilege to have a legal team. I mean, there's so many lawyers from all across the country volunteering to support me. There have been statements of solidarity from different parties, civil society groups, and I'm extremely thankful for that. But imagine if you're an ordinary, more ordinary than us citizens, and you don't have those kinds of privileges.
Or resources to hire your legal team.
So imagine the chilling effect that could have if anyone out there who doesn't agree with you will try to petition you and threaten you with imprisonment or fines, etc. So I think this is also about something bigger.
So how will you respond to this? You have your own legal team now?
Yeah.
And what did they say?
I mean, we have all of the evidence there of my caveats, explanation, my inquiry, but then again, I think we'll only respond if we're asked by the Supreme Court.
Wala pa.
And we're hopeful that the Supreme Court will not even bother with this kind of frivolous petition.
Or not you, because the others medyo mas sharp yung kanilang commentary. For example, Larry Gadon said the SC was a tuta or a lapdog of the Dutertes. And si
At naghamon din siya kay Topacio ng
singing competition. Oo. Si Congressman Percy Sendanya, ang sinabi naman niya, ano ba sinabi niya?
Cuddler?
Ayun, yun. Supreme cuddler of Sara Duterte. Well, anyway, they have their own cases to face, no? Okay, but speaking of this might be a trend that could create a chilling effect. How should we draw the line here in terms of commentary about the judiciary? And it was just, where do you personally draw the line in terms of helping them? I mean, in terms of contempt, allegations of contempt, right? Indirect contempt.
Well, I mean, any personal attack and naming out people like that and all, I think maybe you're crossing into certain lines. But I think we have to understand we're actually in an exceptional situation, right? I think this came as a big surprise. This decision by the Supreme Court came as a big surprise to a lot of people. The fact that you have a former Chief Justice Panginiban, a number of different justices, whether Ascuna, whether Carpio, also expressing, disagreements with the merits of this decision. Looking at the highly polarized situation, emotions are being high. I think the democracy is also, important for us to sometimes understand that when emotions are high, maybe people will say things here and there, but it's important that we recognize that and then we recalibrate from there. And then also, we don't burn bridges. And I always said, we have to learn to agree to disagree. And this Supreme Court, composed of very respectable justices and all, they're more than capable of defending themselves and more than capable of standing their ground and explaining their side. Maybe I would kaya nga sabi ko, I would have loved to interview the relevant folks at the Supreme Court para naman ma-explain din nila sa taong bayan. Kasi 97 pages yan, right? It's and maybe
have you read the whole thing?
I didn't read the whole thing, but I read as much as possible, at least yung relevant provisions and all of that. Ako naman sana, for me, one thing I noticed in other democracies, mature democracies like the United States, ang daling intindihan yung kanilang saligang batas, ang daling intindihan yung English nila. Sometimes in the Philippines, the language is a little bit technical. So to be honest, even as a journalist, someone who's supposedly proficient in the language. I've had to ask help from not only lawyers per se, but constitutional law experts to break it down. So for me, this is also about communicating things further, siguro simplifying it. I mean, that's why I do my own vlogs, to simplify more complicated international issues. Someone said no one reads my books, but last time I checked, no one reads that newspaper or whatever it is. But, my book, for instance, on President Rodrigo Duterte, The Rise of Duterte, right, back in the day.
Yes.
President Duterte has a copy of that. And last time I checked, he has a triple-digit citation on Google Scholar. So I don't know about some friends who are not very appreciative of our scholarly work. But I try my best to, for instance, simplify my works. I had works with Harvard Law School. I had works with Sydney Law School, with different schools on populism, rule of law, and I try to simplify them in my vlogs and tweets and all of that. But having said that, I think the challenge also for some of us, especially people like me who are kind of in different worlds at the same time, kind of in journalism, kind of in academies, we also have to make sure that we find that Goldilocks level of communication whereby, while it's engaging, it doesn't get a little bit overboard, right? So that's why, in fact, you will see, as emotional and sometimes as pugnacious as I may seem, I also try to put caveats and reach out and put different kinds of contextual addendum and analysis there.
Hence the next tweet to the main tweet, right?
Yeah, and of course, there are columns. I mean, people forget, it's not, I don't do one thing. I do everything, right? I don't only write books that certain people are not into reading, but I also do vlogs every day. I write columns every week, not only for the major newspapers here, but also abroad. I do this, interviews, everything like that. So it's a whole body of work that I bring to picture. Yeah.
I'm going to move away to another topic. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Thank God. Yeah, exactly. Like I have my legal team are messaging me, you're talking too much. You might get yourself...
Okay. Punta natin yung SONA. Nandun ka.
Yes.
How was it? How was the experience like? What were your observations?
Right. I mean, throughout the years, I've observed SONA in different capacities. First, as a very humble staff in the Congress. This is during the Pinoy's time. And then, of course, as a resident analyst for the other two big networks. During Digong's time, that was quite challenging. This one was interesting because I felt it was not only an echo of Pinoy, yung 95% at least Filipino language, yung statesman-like and all. I thought it was even more like Bam Aquino. You know what I'm saying? I'll tell you why.
What difference?
Because if you look at the argument of progressives like Bam Aquino, is that, okay, there are all of these contentious, polarizing issues we can discuss. Pero unahin muna natin yung mga gut issues, mga issues na malapit sa puso at puso't ng tao, no? And if you look at the speech of the president, it was like almost entirely about education, and then food security and healthcare, right? So the president was stealing thunder maybe from Malasakit of Bongo, but at the same time, I could see, because I was watching actually Bam and Kiko very much. Like, what would be? They seem to be like, like I think they were feeling it. Especially Bam. I mean, he was sticking out his head and listening. And I think in his own interviews afterwards, he seemed to have been appreciative enough about what the president was doing. So, yes, the president did not address the contentious issue, whether this is the Supreme Court ruling, whether it's the impeachment, ICC issues, our impeachment, even West Philippine Sea he didn't mention, because I think the strategy there was to say, i-freeze muna natin mga contentious political issues. Focus muna tayo dun sa mga basic needs ng ating mga kababayan.
It seemed to
and
be
from there, we can build my
turn,
legacy in the next 3 years.
From what this administration has been communicating. Actually, baka hindi naman nila kasalanan, but also the media cycles around this administration have been centered on the more political issues and the divide. But were you satisfied with what you heard in terms of the social services, in terms of the gut issues? Some would say there were not enough results. I mean, we're in the midterm of this administration, right?
If you look at the opening lines of the president, was an admission, diba? Sabi niya, naririnig ko kayo na hindi kayo natutuwa sa performance natin, kaya nga medyo underperformance, kumbaga, yung nangyari sa midterms dun sa alyansa, di ba? So I think the president humbly accepted that nagkakulang sila. And that's why he's saying, magda-double time na ako in my next 3 years. For me, what was interesting also is that, the president, marami siyang cadence. I mean, there was the usual BBM, just, a bit boring, I would say, grocery list. But there was also this funny BBM. It suddenly talks about our athletes, people's champ, this and that, and then suddenly, and our new boxing champion.
Mo, si Torre.
Yeah, the man of the hour, who was also on this show, the other month. So, he was able to switch in between different kind of cadence and all, and I think but he ended on a quite a strong note. Yung maya naman kayo, 'di ba? Yung na real talk niya, yung flood control projects talaga.
Correct.
What we want sana is hindi lang monitoring, sana may criminal liabilities kung talaga meron na proof na talaga may kalokohan na nangyari dyan, because it's a matter of life and death. If the flood control projects are really faulty and fakey, right? People are gonna die, right? And people may have already died because of that. So I want to hear more from the Department of Justice, from other relevant agencies. So kumbaga, marching order yung SONA eh. Hindi naman yan ang buong blueprint eh. So what I want to see is from relevant agencies, give us details on things that the President mentioned. And I think the fact that the President talked a lot about education and all was kind of a subtle dig at former Education Secretary Sara Duterte to say, ngayon na may bago tayo, may maayos tayo na Secretary of Education, magkakaroon tayo ng tunay na pagbabago.
Hey, Richard, we don't have a lot of time. Just one final question. I had Guido David and Cleve Arguelles here. And we, somehow, in the analysis, parang it seemed the President was moving away from, yung more contentious issues, being very careful and calculated with the Duterte base. Impeachment, ICC not discussed. Pero parang mas tinirapan niya yung mga kaalyado niya. I mean, with budget issues, for example, the House Speaker being embroiled in this. Where do we find House Marcos now?
Well, I don't know about Marcos, but it's like when you say House of Marcos, like which Marcos, which branch we're talking about?
The Speaker, I guess.
No.
Toby Chanco not voting for the Speaker.
No, my point is, the President has to accept that there's a certain section of society, let's just call them core Duterte supporters. Sunog na yan. He's never going to win them over. In fact, if anything, they're completely on the other side.
So why was he careful if he's never going to win
So I
them
think
over?
the best he can do is to win over progressives, non-partisan Filipinos who are concerned about corruption, about transparency, about accountability, and siguro by a little bit making some of his allies punching bag, he's trying to win over those people. Because anyway, you have to stick with me and you need me for the next 3 years. But those other guys, I need to win them over. Maybe I cannot give them what they want on ICC or on SARA impeachment issues. I'll try to keep away from those issues, but I'll give them other things. Accountability, anti-corruption. Kaya, di ba, ang dami nag-post about Pinoy na parang this sounded like a very anti-corruption reformist speech. Ironically, right? I mean, some would say from a Marcos, right? But I feel that was the subtle strategy of winning over. Kasi nakita ko maraming pumapalakpak. Some of them were civil society leaders who were not necessarily either DDS or loyalists or with the administration, but they were happy enough with it. So I think that was a subtle strategy to win over the neither Duterte nor Marcos-based people who are just sick and tired of corruption and anomalies and these fakey flood control projects.
Nakita mo ba yung nag-iisabong?
Yung isang
Congressman.
actually ang dami kong tinitignan doon sa baba ano yung mga pinagagawa nila eh. So echosera ako eh.
Okay,
Zoom lang.
maraming salamat sa iyo, Richard Heydarian. We hope we did not get you in trouble this morning, but thank you so much for explaining your side here on Morning Matters as we...
And thank you for giving me an opportunity.
We probably should get the other side here.
Yeah. No? Thank you for your attention to this matter. Yeah.
All sides, all the time. Don't go away. More matters discussed after a quick break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Filipino-American legislator Luz Bay is making her mark in New Hampshire as a strong voice for inclusion, equity, and public service. Now, first elected in 2022, Bay is known for championing education and healthcare, as well as reproductive rights and voting access. Her political involvement began in 2008 when she started volunteering for Democratic campaigns and became active with the Dover Democratic Committee. She later served on the New Hampshire Democratic Party's Platform Committee before running for office. Bay holds a PhD in educational measurement and statistics and has spent nearly 30 years working in educational assessment. She is also a 3-time cancer survivor and describes herself as a pro-choice Catholic.
Let me say it clearly. I am here because I belong here. My constituents in Strafford County District 21 elected me under the same laws with the same legitimacy as anyone in this room. My birthplace does not make me less American. My accent does not disqualify me from public service. And my identity as Filipino-American does not make me a guest.
In that video, Bay shared that a Republican colleague told her to go home to the Philippines after she delivered a speech commemorating Philippine Independence Day. In her remarks, she referred to the Philippines as her home country, a statement that prompted another lawmaker to question her right to serve. To talk more about her journey and what drives her work in public service, we have her here in the studio, New Hampshire State Representative Luz Bay. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Matters.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank
you for having me.
To be honest, I was watching that video and I wanted to cheer on for you and defend you, diba?
Yeah, it was actually great because I didn't realize that it went viral, and it went viral among Filipino communities. And there are TV channels such as yours that put it on their own TikTok or Instagram pages. And I woke up the next morning, and my sister's actually visiting me in New Hampshire. And so she woke up and she said, "Oh, my friends are asking me if this was you." And it's like, oh my God, I did not realize. Then I started looking, and I didn't realize there's so much support. There's so much support of me. There's so much support of Philippine Americans, and everybody's cheering on. Yes, that's what you had to say. And making this statement about, unless you're indigenous, you really are immigrant or family of
Indigenous
immigrants.
American,
Indigenous
right?
Americans, yeah.
Pare-pareho lang tayo in
Absolutely,
short.
absolutely. So that's the point that was made. So it's like I was speaking the silent part because everybody was thinking it, everybody agrees, at least in my camp, but no one was saying it. So when I said it, everybody was cheering me on. And even my community in Dover, New Hampshire, a lot of people came to me and saying, "Oh my God, that was the best speech that I've ever heard in a while," and I cry every time I hear it. And
It was really good. But tell us more about the context of that speech, no? I mean, moving away from just the lawmaker telling you to go home because of the commemoration of the Philippine Independence Day, have you been long experiencing some form of Asian hate or discrimination?
Not quite, because I have been in the educational assessment field, and believe it or not, because it's a quantitative field, a lot of people are actually Asians. So I am among Asians. Now, as far as there might be systemic discrimination because we work for testing companies, and the higher-ups of the testing companies are not Asians, mostly. So is there a systemic discrimination? Maybe. But in our work, because we're mostly Asians, then we have a lot of cooperation and we get our work done and so forth. But I can say that I have two grown children, and I remember my daughter was telling me that one time she was coal rolled. And I don't know if you're familiar with coal rolling. So some people will rig their trucks so that it'll blow a black smoke to people who are environmental. Like, oh, you're driving by a Prius, and then they'll blow black smoke on the Prius. So one time she was driving a Volvo convertible, and there's nothing, it's not an environmental car, but she was cold rolled, and the only thing that we can think of was actually because she looked Asian. So we don't know. It's a hypothesis.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I myself have experience. I mean, when I went to New York, but that was right after the pandemic in 2022. But that's for a different interview altogether. No, you have had a long experience in educational assessment and psychometrics.
Psychometrics.
How does that background help you in your work as a legislator now, and how did that bring you here to where you are?
That's actually.
And what is a state representative? I mean, does it compare to a congressman, a congresswoman here in the Philippines?
Yes, it's actually so because it's a federal government. So you are familiar with the U.S. Congress, where every state sends in their 2 senators to Congress. That makes it 50 U.S. senators, and then there are 435 U.S. congressmen. And so each state sent to the U.S.
To the national
government, their own representatives. Like if you have a smaller population state like New Hampshire, you have 2. If you're a bigger state like California, then you have like 118 or something
similar
like
to
that.
the Philippines.
Yes, but each state will have a similar government. So in my state of New Hampshire, we also have the governor, Supreme Court, and then we have a Senate and House of Representatives. So it's like similar to a congressman, but for a state. So that's the office that I hold.
And how does your background help you in your work? I mean, how did you end up being a legislator?
Well, that's really interesting, because I thought that my being psychometrician for 30 years will help me, but it's actually. I'm finding out that the only relationship that my work and my work in the House is, the 2 endeavors in American society that involves bubbling in a piece of paper is educational testing and election.
Yeah, but yun ang pinaka-connection lang.
Right. I actually, so my advocacy is sort of separate. My advocacy and my political career is sort of separate from my academic or corporate career. The only thing is my corporate career is actually I have flexibility.
Correct.
So that I can serve in the House, because unlike so it's different for different states. In the state of New Hampshire, our service is actually voluntary. We don't get paid as
that's why you're allowed to work. Okay, what are you advocating for?
Okay. So when I first ran, the 3 things I have in my platform are education, women's health care, and election law, or right to vote. But then one of the things that happened is, you try to help people where they are. As a Filipino, we're always like trying to be helpful. We have the mentality of kapwa, and you have to help whenever you can. So I was fine. Like, for example, advocacy for small businesses was not in my platform, but then I have a constituent who came to me because they own a Chinese restaurant, and they're getting there's a fraud or scam about to happen. And so they asked me for help. And so I went to the Secretary of State, and then I ended up actually sponsoring a bill to prevent fraud and scam of small and medium-sized businesses. And actually, it just became law.
Wow,
the governor signed it. Yes, but it's one of those things that, I was intending to do this. I was thinking I'm going to be helpful this way, but this is where people need help. So that's where I'll be.
But how were you able to get yourself elected? I mean, how was the campaign? It seems to me that people are more empowered at the individual level in the United States with its form of government. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, it's like basically you can run for office whoever you are. I think in the Philippines, you feel like you can run for office in your family or families of politicians, and I'm not. Obviously, I'm the only one here in my family. But there is something that I want to do that I feel like I can contribute to. And so what really pushed me, so when I got involved, and I'm on the platform committee of my state's Democratic Party, and then so I became aware of the political situation. And then something that happened that actually pushed me over the edge was the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And during that, the Supreme Court of the United States said that this type of laws are going to have to be taken care of at the state level.
Abortion, right?
Yes, the abortion rights. And it needs to be taken care of at the state level. And then I thought, oh, so if this is going to be taken care of and fought for at the state level, then I'm going to the state. And that's where I'm going to fight. Because I think bodily autonomy is important to me. Like you, man, woman, LGBTQ, you have the right to your own body. You cannot be told what you, or the government should not be telling you what you can and can't do with your
Hence
body.
your pro-choice stance,
I'm a pro-choice
right?
Catholic, yes.
Okay, a Republican president just won. How are things for Filipinos in the United States?
Yeah, that's actually tricky because one thing that I was finding out, especially when my video went viral, there are MAGA Filipinos, and yes, and they're supportive of
immigration policies.
Oh yeah, and they don't think that it will happen to them, and actually it happens to everyone.
Even if you have your papers.
Yes, and. Actually, there was someone, he's a school superintendent in the state of Vermont. He went home to his home in Guatemala. On his way back, he was held and interrogated for hours, even with his own papers. And even me coming here, my son, who's a third-year law student, was actually, Mommy, I'm really concerned about you going to the Philippines. You might not be able to come back. And I said, you know, I'm a citizen and I have my papers. It's like, I have my passport book, I have my passport card, I have my global entry. And he said, I talked to the immigration lawyer in my firm, and he said, whatever certification that you have to show that you're a citizen, you should also bring that. I'm like, oh, so I was naturalized in 2002, so I had to look for my just to make my son feel comfortable. Is to bring that because it is happening to.
So how are you
everyone.
taking care of the Filipino community there and pushing back on this? I mean, it does need to have its boundaries in terms of implementation.
Right, and actually, it's not just the Filipino communities; it's everyone, the whole immigrant population. So, for all the Democratic representatives in New Hampshire, we're all in this together. So right now, they're actually put some immigration agents who will go to like a Mexican restaurant and then start arresting people, whether they're citizens or non-citizens, or some people who are doing their reporting to the immigration office. And when they report, they just arrest them. So we have to be vigilant. So we actually try to send our people and send the ACLU lawyers and state representatives are there alerting everyone. And for me, you know, I have alerted all my congressmen and my senators that I'm here, and if I get in trouble coming in, I'm calling them.
I forgot, this was supposed to be my first question, pero bakit ho kayo nandito?
Yes.
Pa ba kayo manangalog? Galing kayo Batangas, ano?
Oo. Pero actually, I'm here, and I have to say that the previous guest was talking about SONA.
Yes.
I didn't listen to SONA because I was jet-lagged and I was sleeping. But EDCOM2 recommendations, they released this list of EDCOM2 recommendations, and may I read it? Because the second bullet said, review the Department of Education's learning remediation program and ensure proper targeting, prompt support, and proper assessment of students that require urgent intervention with a focus on those lacking foundation competencies. And my friends are actually here, and they are edupreneurs, and they are trying to help the Philippines to change the way that students learn, and to measure the actual change requires proper assessment. And I have that expertise, and I'd like to give back because this country has given so much to me.
We're happy to have you back.
Thank you.
And happy to know that you're fighting for, I mean, two sides, right?
Yes.
You being an American now and still being very much a Filipino. And
Absolutely.
it could go together.
And that's
very well.
actually, you know, when we go to the United States and we become citizens, we don't give up being Filipinos. We don't give up our culture. We actually bring it to assimilate the culture to make it part of the American diaspora. And, you know, because we're all in this together. We're citizens of the world.
Now let that go viral. Okay, maraming salamat sa'yo thank you so much for joining us today. We have Representative Luz Bay from New Hampshire sharing with us her journey. And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Ho. We are One News, all sides, all the time.